Hello, everybody. Weird opening for the LJL officially unofficial content. We've had some recording and technical problems during the first split of week 3. So these first 4 games are going to have audio problems. The AXIZ game for the first one, so that's AXIZ versus Rascal Jester. A lot of the recording became corrupted. Or parts of the stream ran out, so stuff that I had doesn't work, and then stuff I did have, I'm now having to splice with Twitch archived footage. It's a little bit of a pain, but thank you for your understanding, and come the next 4 games of week 3, we're hoping to have that all solved, so thank you for your understanding. Hello everybody, and welcome to the LJL officially unofficial cast. We're going to cover the first 4 games of the LJL from today, and the date is the 15th of February 2020. I am your host, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi, and I go by Mars Swan on the internet, as you can see from my lovely Twitter handle. We're upgrading, lads, already, week 3, and we're experiencing upgrades.
Graphic design is our passion.
I am, of course, joined by my lovely commentators, my casters, my play-by-play caster, and my color commentator. I'm still going to keep doing this. You're getting different titles every time, switching it around. Initialize and Nymera, please, as always, introduce yourselves.
Happy post-Valentine's Day. Sam, Initialize. It's good to have you here with us, either on stream or on the VODs. I'm really looking forward to casting these games.
Yeah, my Valentine was League of Legends, my one true love, and what a beautiful day it is to wake up in this glorious, not quite morning because we woke up too late, day of League of Legends.
I mean, isn't your waifu behind you?
Yes.
Wasn't that your Valentine, surely?
Yeah, but I was trying to keep it light.
No. Nah, that's not happening. So, as always on the LJL cast, within reason, we try and only cover the first 4 games because it is a it's a very long process for all of the 3 of us, as this is a fan-run stream. We are by no means at all affiliated with Riot Games at all. This is all done off of our own little backs. We are trying to bring this content because we believe the LJL is a region that is a very exciting region. We're very all passionate. The more we talk about the LJL and cast these games and everything, and our podcast, plug number 1, we love watching the LJL. So we will cover the first 4 games, and then tomorrow we will be covering the latter 4 games. But today we will be covering game 1 of Rascal Jester versus AXIZ. After that, we'll then see AXIZ again, but versus Crest Gaming Act. Following that game, we'll get Crest Gaming Act again, but versus V3 Esports. And then to round out the day, we'll have V3 Esports versus Rascal Jester. Gentlemen, which game here are you excited to cover? Like, what team are you excited to see more of? What about this kind of first 4 games that we'll be covering over here on the LJL officially unofficial are you hyped for?
I think Rascal Jester are the team that we're watching. So we recorded our podcast last night for them to watch it.
It should be up hopefully in the next hour or 2, maybe.
Sometime, yeah. But like we all agreed that Rascal Jester effectively played the 4 best teams from the early season so far. They came out 1 and 3. They were really unlucky to play Sengoku when they drafted really well, which is something which they haven't consistently done. So I think that Rascal Jester, we don't have a good benchmark for like exactly where they are in the standings, and the same is said for V3 as well. So I think Rascal Jester V3, that'll be the benchmark game. It could be absolutely explosive, could be a dud, but it will be very important for the standings nonetheless.
Cool.
I'm also kind of interested in Crest Gaming Act versus V3.
Yeah.
Mainly because Crest Gaming Act have had a couple of... They're 3 and 1. They've looked absolutely stellar off the back of Arya in the mid lane and Gango in the bot lane. Their jungler Yoshi has not looked as secure.
Not solid.
And versus someone like Boogie, who has run over... In the games where V3 have won, he's run over the early game on the junglers or just really run the show from the jungle. I want to see how that looks versus a team like CGA.
Totally, and I really do agree with you. On our podcast, we actually say that V3 versus Rascal Jester is going to be one of our games to watch of this week. So we have very high expectations from both the teams and the game themselves. But I can't underrate Crest. Arya in that mid lane, definitely one of the best in the league.
I would say the best. I think he's so good right now. So good. He's won 4 different games and 4 different champions. He's looked stellar so far. All of us have agreed that he is, in contention for MVP or outright MVP of one or both of the 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, not just that. The guy on his LeBlanc game put out about nearly 1.1k damage a minute. Was Deathless 8017,
25 stack
yeah,
Magi.
exactly, fully stacked Magi. Was an utter monster. This guy has had some seriously stellar games, absolute stellar performances out of that mid laner.
And it really does make you wonder the kind of ceiling on some of these players, and it's going to be really exciting to see how this split progresses. But I think that's enough hypothesizing for this moment till we come after our next break, and then we'll probably go into more, I wonder what can happen here. Let's get ready to go into our first game of AXIZ versus Rascal Jester. Now, as always, on the officially unofficial cast, we are doing a blast from the past, so I do have to count us in to the game. But with that in mind, I will quickly count us in. Are you ready over there on the other side?
I believe so, yeah.
Absolutely awesome. All right, so in 3, 2, 1, good luck to both of the teams involved.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good to be into draft. Let's go through some rundowns. So over for the side of AXIZ, in the top lane it's Uinyan, jungle is Hoglet, mid lane is Gariadu, and their bot lane is Hyde and Corporal respectively.
And on the red side, this game we have in the top lane for Rascal Jester, Cog, jungle, Hachimecha, mid lane Ninja, bot lane Art, and support Vivid.
And we've already had a few bans come through. Soraka Rumble off for AXIZ, and Aphelios is the response from the Jesters.
Yeah, so it looks like all of these are kind of the most powerful picks that we've seen in their respective roles, really. The set coming through as a ban as well. So the Rumble, the Soraka, and the set all being somewhat flexible between solo lanes, and then also the Rumble being able to be put towards support as well. We have seen that once already.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to see how AXIZ draft. They pulled up some really creative drafts, including a Tristana mid, Karthus jungle combo. It was really good fun. I'm going to see whether they can, or I want to see rather, whether they pull out something in a similar vein with that kind of continued creativity.
Yeah, and actually we see a Lucian ban here. This is something we talked about a bit in our podcast. That's our third plug of the day for that, where we're
It's
saying,
only been
well,
10 minutes, man.
yeah, well, effectively, where is the Lucian? And it's been banned this time.
And once again, we're seeing Elise get through the draft. When she has got through the draft, she's straight away picked up by AXIZ. So that's Hoglet in the jungle who will have that. But I've been talking a little bit about Zach, and I wouldn't be entirely surprised to see him hit picked here. I know that, of course, it's a hover, but I have been quite sort of vocal about thinking if we are seeing a bit more of a team fight heavy focus from people like the LJL, then maybe we'll see something along the lines of a Zach, but they default back to the Jarvan.
Yeah, so Jarvan, I think then when we're talking about team fighting junglers, I feel like Jarvan is the premier pick still. I feel like he is, we've seen people like Steel have some really, really strong games on the Jarvan. And this might actually be a lock-in of Jarvan Galio here if they're thinking about it. We did see that from DFM once. There are a couple of picks available if they so want to pick them up though. And it is the another big team fight component of so many team compositions.
Well, Rascal Jester certainly won't lack for engage. That's 2 fairly significant picks there in terms of that element of the game. But we'll see what AXIZ responds with. Of course, the Braum is still up if they do want to have that shield to block up the Ornult. So that might be something they think towards. But looking at least at the minute at an Aatrox, and it's locked in.
Yeah, so it's going to be at least Aatrox. You have to imagine in the top side. That's the double damage combo of physical and magic. Allows you to dive into that top lane pretty easily, but diving an Ornn is a bit of a problem if that does go towards there. AXIZ just hovering their picks and locking in a Braum, as you were saying, initialize.
I'll take that as a play-by-play prediction. That's not bad work.
It's
I mean, not hard prediction, I grant you, but I'm pretty happy with that. We'll see what Jesters round up their first round of picks with.
Yeah, so basically the Braum has been picked because of the Ornn. There are picks here available like Leona or the Nautilus, which do give you a bit more engage. And speaking of engage once more, we have an Ashe picked up for Art in the bot lane. This guy has looked really, really good on this pick in this other 2 games.
This will be his 3rd Ashe pick in 5 games. That man has had 2 fantastic performances of it. 1 win, 1 loss, but I'm always happy to see him on this champion. Certainly knows how to push it to the edge.
Yeah, and actually, Rascal Jester did lose an Ash versus Braum game.
He did.
Yeah, it was against the Hawks, I believe, actually. And they were playing Ornn in that game too. So this is a composition which they've kind of revisited a bit. We'll see if they can outplay this time as we see Kiana removed from AXZ, which would have gone towards Gadiaru in the mid lane.
Yeah, and Kiana definitely versus something like an Ashe can be a bit scary. Rakan also taken away here, so one of Vivid's really famous champions, an excellent player of Rakan. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Nautilus or a Thresh ban here, as well as other champions that he is pretty good at.
There's also Leona as well, like just in terms of the meta top tier melee supports.
Mhm.
There's an off chance that it's something like a Tom Kench picked up as well. We'll see what AXZ really want to remove, whether it's the engage or the disengage options. Pantheon taken away by Rascal Jester though.
Pantheon, as we've kind of said, is still very strong. Of course, he's not quite as high presence as he was when he was first reworked and introduced into pro play, but there's still that threat of him coming in, can be flexed so easily, offers a lot of map pressure. He's got another one of those semi-global ultimates with the Grand Starfall, so not surprised to see him taken off the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It is worth noting, guys, that this is patch 10.2. Akali hasn't been nerfed into the ground yet, so that Akali was banned in the first round of this draft. So we see the Bard actually banned away from Vivid.
He's a good Bard player.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and Bard is also quite a strong champion. A lot of his numbers are really high right now, does a lot of damage. So Axe is respecting that, and it is the Tahm Kench picked up by Rascal Jester as another one of these, the last remaining melee supports.
Well, they've already got enough engaged. That's certainly not a problem. They just need to make sure that their Ashe stays alive through some of these team fights. Tahm Kench is a pretty good pick to offer that safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Tahm Kench, it's very hard to kill in a lot of these bot lane duos, and we're yet to see a bot laner picked up by AXZ, but somehow Misfortune has fallen all the way down into these second round of picks. Fourth pick for AXZ, going towards Hyde in that bot lane.
Yep, and of course, I wonder whether that might be a Leona pickup here. Well, we've got the Braum, actually, so what am I talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't need to think about that. It's probably going to be another solo laner, Zoe being hovered, and that's obviously a very strong pick at the minute.
Yeah, so Zoe has been picked a number of times. It's a pretty decent blind pick, and as is the LeBlanc as well. So it's not the Zoe locked in, it is the LeBlanc. So we fired a little bit too early on that shot there. LeBlanc being just very good into pretty much all comers, doesn't tend to suffer too much in too many matchups. Although in this case, we could actually see the Ornn be shifted mid and something else be picked into the top lane. That's the one last surprise we could have from this draft, as Rascal Jester have one last pick to pick.
Well, Ninja's certainly being willing to branch his champion pool out. We've already seen him play a Soraka mid, so maybe we will. Silas has been locked in. It's an LJL special. They do love this champion. I wonder whether this will be mid or top, though. I'm assuming mid?
I'm assuming mid lane. I think this is actually... I think this should be after Silas's mini rework. I think that came in on 10.2.
Yes, this will be with the really increased ridiculous damage on his E2.
His E and his Q slightly more bursty. He doesn't get the magic shield anymore, though, and his W no longer has the execute slash... increased healing below when either himself or the target is below 50% HP, but does heal off of minions and monsters now. So.
Yeah. It's, I believe it's the abduct part of the abscond and abduct is now pretty disgusting. It's now up to something like 100% AP scaling, something like that. Got an absolutely massive AP addition to it. Changed his play pattern quite heavily. So we'll see how Ninja pilots this in the mid lane versus the LeBlanc.
Yeah, the coaches shake hands and walk off stage, and yeah, we have ourselves our drafts for the first game. So what I see here is a lot of different options available for the side of Rascal Jester as for how they choose fights and how they choose not to fight. So one thing that we saw in V3's perfect game versus Burning Core in week 2 is that the Ornn is very, very good on the disengage side of things. As we were also saying in this draft, Braum can stop the Ram Jam from affecting team fights. Just put up the shield behind you, destroy that projectile, and it stops a lot of the ensuing fight as well. But if you do waste that shield, you can imagine that the Ornn is then got the green light to engage onto the rest of his team.
Yeah, and I'm kind of interested to see what Hoglet does on this. At least she's not got a particularly fantastic win rate. I think she might be winless.
She is 0 and 3 right now. I think it's 0 and 2, 0 3. She's not particularly high win rate. I can't remember the exact stats, but it is quite low.
And in fairness, I think that's partly because of the teams that have been picking it up rather than necessarily the champion itself. But I want to see whether Hoglet can turn the Spider Lady's fortunes around. No pun on the fact that Misfortune is also on their team. But let's see how this goes as we get into game.
Game on. Yes, so as we were saying, Elise was really banned quite a lot. She isn't really picked so much. So when she is let through, you have to, you kind of think that maybe the teams have some way to deal with that. We see the new Freljord Silas skin coming out of Ninja here.
Orchestral Warriors themes intensify. Sadly, no Lux on the other side for the true narrative epic fight, but alas,
True, yeah.
it's LeBlanc instead. I'm kind of fine with that.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering where you're going for with that until I remembered the Warriors cinematic.
It was really cool,
It was
that. I
very cool
really
cinematic,
enjoyed
yeah,
that
yeah,
cinematic.
it was really cool, yeah.
And I was a big fan of the remix of the track, actually, but I've always been a fan of my epic orchestral reimaginings of
sure.
tracks. Mafia Misfortune skin. Solid one with the Tommy guns. Always a fan of that. Is it? Oh, it's not the Mafia Braum. That would have
No, that
been
would've
the
been-
really.
yeah.
Where's the Skinergy man? Come on.
Yeah, that
Corporal.
would've been pretty cool. It's the D&D Braum. I can't remember the full title of it, but it's like
I just know it's D&D Braum, right?
it's Shield Bearer Braum, something like that. I
Yeah.
think. But as we see, Jungler starting on opposite sides of the map, so we see Hatchmatch starting on the red and Hoglet starting on the blue. So what this means is that it does open up Elise for trying to go for like a level 3, level 4 gank on top side, because she will be finishing her first clear on that side of the map. Whereas Jarvan probably hanging around towards the bot side scuttle, not necessarily being able to do the same amount of gank pressure that Unleash can at this point in the game.
Yeah, we have, of course, as a bit of a caveat to that, seen 1 or 2 level 2 Jarvan ganks where it's the red, the blue, possibly A camp into a flash engage in the bot side. So we might see Jarvan really throw everything at the wall and go for that.
Yeah, he has gone buff to buff so far, but his bot lane are pushing in, so I'm not entirely sure that's going to be about
viable
ganking.
Yes, of course. So we'll see how this goes, but a little bit of trading in this mid lane early on. Ninjas come out worse for wear currently, but we'll see whether that continues to be a problem.
Yeah, Silas doesn't trade fantastically well early, especially because LeBlanc very much does so with the electrocute.
Oh, yes.
Silas has gone for this Conqueror. It does mean that you can get into these skirmishes with the likes of Aatrox and LeBlanc in the side lanes, and it gives you that extended power over longer fights.
Yeah, and we'll see how these sort of early pathing junglers decide to impact the map early, but Hoglet now caught out by that hawk shot from the Ashe, the drone coming over, catching her out on the Gromp. So
Well, what this
all
means
will
is
know
that
what's going on.
Hatchemetcha knows that the Raptors are up, and we'll get a good steal here, actually, as we see actually a decent back and forth in the mid lane. Clone popped by the LeBlanc, and yeah, interesting trades.
Yeah, it is, and we're seeing corrupting pop charge by both, but Hoglet is undeterred by the sort of vision catch of him, and he's here. Ornn is pushed under tower. Does Hoglet look to dive? No, just going for an invade. But Jarvan's already been through Hoglet's Raptor camp, and we'll see whether he spots it in time. I suspect not.
Hoglet not choosing to stick around and take any of the top side of Rascal Genesis jungle, rather backing off towards the scuttle, just making sure that's down for a little bit of vision and topside control. It's kind of turning into a little bit of vertical jungling right now, just as a result of where these junglers are pathing.
Well, we're seeing Ornn still under tower. Onyan's pushing up. Hoglet is here. Are we looking at a dive? No, we're looking at some Krug steals. Alas, more farming.
Don't do Krugs, kids.
Don't do Krugs. No.
Stay off of that.
Actually, as a jungler, I really do suggest you do Krugs. There's a lot of experience in gold in there.
Stay in lane, don't do Krugs. That's our motivational message. Actually, we see some ships in the nights. In the night here, just passing by, the junglers are.
They're going to miss each other, even with the vision blunt. But Hoglet now on a ward placed by Ninja earlier. They'll know where he is.
Yeah, Hatchemetcha did just briefly spot that out. So Hoglet didn't fully clear the Krugs camp, but we might see a counter gank up here.
Yeah, there's a level 4 to 3, but that's
misses.
a miss on the Cocoon, and the ward will stay in, not quite quick enough with the auto cancel on the Skittering Frenzy.
Yeah, so we saw the level advantage from Hoglet, just managing to take away those, well, at least the 2 starting Krugs from Rascal Jester side of the jungle. So the thing about Krugs is that if you do take just the original 2 Krugs when they split off, if you take just those 2, the camp does reset. It means that you can't just leave one of the mini ones there just for like a 10 gold snack, as you can do with the Raptors, which I think Hatchemetcha actually did to AXIZ side of the jungle. So Hoglet, next time he goes down towards those Raptors, might be in for a bit less chicken, little less chicken than he was expecting.
Yeah, gonna have to send that one back with the Just Eat driver. But until that point, we're looking at a bit of a CS lead, just about for Art and Vivid, but Wave being picked up by Hyde should even that out. But mid lane, bit more significant, about 5 or 6, maybe going up towards 10, and a similar sort of lead up in the top side.
Yeah, and actually one thing we see here is that Gallardo opted for the Ignite on the LeBlanc, not the teleport. We have seen, I think it was Ramune that went for the teleport
Yes,
last
he
time he
did.
played that as well. But
As
yeah,
did Pyrion, I think.
yeah, Pyrium definitely went for the. Oh, it's a good trade from.
It is
Onion
some
onto
nice
Pogba
dark in
here.
place. He's got the Conqueror stack. Conqueror having to searing charge away, but throws the
Ooh,
pillar out.
The
And
minions
actually,
are doing a lot of damage.
Yeah,
actually.
that was a little bit aggressive there. But Hoglet is still around. Like, the dude has not left this top side.
I mean, it's an Elise and topside. Oh, Zigayadu just going in for his level 6 trade there, getting that just a few minions before Ninja because the wave has been cleared more significantly from his side.
How are you feeling this early game's playing out? We're looking at not much of a gold lead, maybe 300 odd for AXIZ off little CS leads here and there.
Well, I think for one of the first times in the LJL that we've seen so far, neither team competently outscales the other in terms of team fight. I feel like there are team fight options available for both of them. It'd be very good if Hatchemetra could pick up this Cloud Drake because they are quite reliant on the Ornn and Ashe ultimate, and to a lesser extent the Cataclysm as well from Jarvan. So, they do want to be fighting around those cooldowns. When they're down, they'll probably look to be a little bit more passive, and the extra 10% cooldown on those abilities will mean that they have a bit larger windows of time to work around.
And Hoglet clearly didn't listen to your PSA and has gone invading on Hatchemetra's Krugs one more time. And Ornn is going to be pushed on the tower, but has got level 6. I really don't recommend that dive. It's a really tricky one.
Yeah, it has the flash. Already built up the Barmy Cinder, so has a bit of extra HP. Does a bit more damage than you necessarily think as well. We see down into mid lane as well. Although there's been some pretty heavy trading when the camera's been on screen. As we see, maybe...
Yeah, Corporal, Hoglet, and Vivid there,
flash
that's a flash in,
chain.
and we're going to see that, but that is a decent thing. That's a good cocoon, and now Ninja is in so much trouble. Goes down for first blood to Elise.
Oh, he flashes, and I actually... Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but I think he flashed towards Vivid to try and get the Guardian Shield, and it didn't proc in time. I believe that's what happened.
Yeah, he was looking to try and get there towards... I think it was for the heal as well, because Vivid healed to try and save his mid lane. It wasn't quite enough. And we're looking at an invade here. Red buff steal away by Hoglet. That's actually a really nice first blood and a good roam by Corporal to come up from a side that people weren't expecting.
Yeah, it is. It is a flash, an ignite, and another flash committed by the side of AXZ. And we see here that the level 6 has ticked over. Flash chain to get around the minions. Hoglet is in there for extra follow-up CC, and of course Braum adding the little bit extra bit of damage, which becomes very relevant because I think actually with the heal and Guardian Shield might have been able to get out of there if Corporal wasn't there for the roam.
Yeah, no, I agree with your thoughts there. And that's good stuff. From AXZ early on, we have seen some good early games from this team.
We have.
The problem is they hit about 15 minutes and seem to fall prey to a lot of skirmishes and TP flanks and just poor vision control really when it comes to objectives.
Yeah, they haven't necessarily played out to their win conditions with their team composition before this. We saw this quite on show against the Hawks in their week 2 game. I think it was their last 2 week game where they played a very big wombo combo team and they just kind of lost control of the map, never showed up to objectives before the enemy team, got muscled out of those, and then got out-womboed by Hawks' wombo team. So.
Yeah, we're looking at a Runic Echoes completion for this.
Kill. Herald does true damage, so it isn't affected by that. So if you want to kill a tower very quickly, you take down a plate or a plate and a half first, then you hit it with the true damage from the Herald, and then that will be most of the tower gone. So yeah, very well done from AXZ there, showing that they have that knowledge available to them.
Indeed, and actually, Art and Vivid don't manage to claim the turret in the bot side. So that's 2 turrets and none, and all said and done, we're looking at about a 1,500 odd gold lead for AXZ in this early game.
Yeah, but it's not on the AD carry. So Art, as he has done in his other Ashe games, even though that Hyde managed to get a lot of that plate gold, is going to come into these fights in a strong position of power. And, that's a very nice ward by Corporal. Manages to get into that tri-brush. That's actually really hard to land that, by the way.
I don't think I've ever tried that one.
Yeah, that one's pretty difficult. It's not the Scar Award, the one over the Dragon Pit. That one's really annoying. But
didn't we see someone fail that the other week as well? It was on the Blitzcrank. Was it Gang on the Blitzcrank? Failed.
Yeah, it was either that or it might have been Proud actually. There've been 2. Oh,
he managed to turn up in how was a bit too busy talking about Gang, and that's a flash out from Hatchemetra, who's in trouble, but no repel over the wall. Gets out, but at the cost of his flash. Nice invade.
Note to self: stop talking about wards when junglers are about to die. Okay, right.
But that means that Hatchemetra has burned his flash and his HP bar as this Ocean Drake is spawning. Art and Vivid around does have ultimate, does Art, but that's going to be early pressure here around this Drake for AXZ.
It is, but so the Ocean Drake is live. The Rascal Jesters do have the Scuttle Crab, which is going to time out very shortly. I think they'll probably be able to get this Ocean Drake, though. So we'll also get to see what flavor of Rift we're getting today.
Indeed, and what will it be? shake the magic 8-ball. It's going to be a Mountain Rift today.
Okay, and that very much favors the side of Rascal Jester if they do manage to get more of these Drakes,
Oh, yes.
because they do actually have a tank composition in a lot of ways. As Ninja, you can see that the healing you get from that Kingslayer there heals up like 300 from that. Pretty nice.
Yep, that's some good stuff indeed. You've got to be
Yeah.
so wary of that, Silas. His health bar is always a little bit of a misnomer as to how close to death he actually is.
As is Tom Kench really with the
Right.
grey skin. Yeah, there's a whole lot of that going on in Rascal Jester's team comp. A bit more chunk going down onto this bot lane turret, but the last plate's still available.
Yeah, Hyde and Corporal here trying to hold on to this tower if they can, but Hatchamech is around. Could think about a dive, but always a little tricky with level 7 from Braum and Misfortune having all her summoners available. I was actually run teleport this game, I missed that, but I think Art and Vivid are actually going to claim this now. Not enough pressure on this wave, and finally picked up by Rascal Jester for their first turret of the game. Couple turret shots tanked by Art, but that's all done now.
Yeah, and Hoglet going in for another invade into the top side, particularly with the 2 top lane turrets down as well. Cog doesn't have too much of a base to work off of when trying to walk into the jungle. Does mean that those top side camps are definitely going the way of AXIZ, although even though we're saying that, Hatchamacher has managed to keep himself a couple of camps in the lead on Hoglet.
Yeah, I think that's probably sometimes just the way Jarvan is. I think Jarvan's probably a slightly swifter farmer with how quickly his AoE abilities are up.
I'm actually not sure about that. I think Elise does okay.
She does, but like her only AoE skill, right, is the volatile spiraling. That's
Yeah.
only when she's in human form, so she doesn't get, and that's quite a long cooldown as well.
But the
so
thing
you
about
can deal with
the
that.
thing about Krugs is that they have negative magic resist. So
Yes.
if you're an AP jungler or do magic damage as a jungler, they do take more damage. And as we have said, Hoglet has been just high on Krugs this game. Just been doing so many of those rocks.
He has.
Yep. Just
I've never actually heard that joke before.
Really.
No, I haven't. I don't know quite how. 'Cause
Well,
it feels like it should be a
Well,
fairly.
so now I feel like I have a like a green light to say, hey, I can say this for the rest of the cast.
I mean, we'll go with it. We're not affiliated with Riot, so we're not beholden to the same broadcast rules. But
sure.
we'll take that. That's taken away now by at least a spike contest from Silas.
Yeah.
Retained control of her supply.
Oh, wow. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
my
she did.
days.
Confronted by the law enforcement officer of Ninja, trying to take away her Krugs. Doesn't manage to do that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of falling into this 3-lane style now. Ninja
Oh,
has the
dear.
teleport on the Silas.
That's actually, no, does that mean like does Silas
Stop.
count as a corrupt cop? Because of course he was like a mage finder, wasn't he, for Demacia before turning into a user of magic himself?
The more
Does
that,
that
the
look?
more
It's getting
Shush.
deeper and deeper here.
the more that we kind of give purpose to this joke, the more real it seems, and the more scared I get. So we see
It
Ninja.
needs to stop.
I was talking about actually this could be a 5v5.
It is.
here.
Gario's going over the wall onto Hatchamacher, who's like
Oh.
3 levels down. That's a decent cocoon over onto Vivid, but it's a Tom Kench, so he's fine for now. Art and Silas and Ornn all here for Rascal Jester. Hatchamacher has got pots back up to half HP, but Gario popping over the wall using that distort. Hoglet's still here, but it's 2 control wards in this bush. So currently everyone has vision. We'll see for how much longer.
Yeah, they do have the Ash Ult available to them. See if they can try and waste the Braum shield with that, engage with that first, and then follow through with the Ornn ult. Galliardo is really looking quite strong. Oh,
That's another good
see,
cocoon
yeah.
onto Hatchamacher, who takes another chunk of damage, and that's a teleport in from Misfortune,
Hyde, yeah.
who decided to back for a quick Essence Reaver buy. So that puts her at an item-to-item parity with Art, who has the Blade of the Ring King as well.
Yeah, and Hatchamacher is just getting chunked out here. Doesn't have the stone plate available to him just yet. And it does look like that chunk might buy AXIZ the second Herald of the game. But, you know, Rascal Jester still hanging around the area. They do still have a lot of damage. Ash being able to engage as well. But it's largely about how much work can Galliardo do onto the carries before this fight starts up.
So it's a 4v5
Ooh, and
Herald.
it's a lot of damage,
That's a
actually.
lot of damage. And Cog of all people on this Ornn takes all that damage. The Ignite burns him pretty low, and Unyan has found himself a decent flank. Is off vision for now. Is going to be secured. Yep, done. But we're seeing Ninja go in. His Proto Belt in. Corporal is here. But that's a good bullet time because a lot of people, and Unyan has found his way into the background. And that's a lot of damage from this Darkim, who is doing so much in this world. And that is the stopwatch down. You're right. And that's not a fantastic Ornn. And Cog is so damn low. Hoglet
gets hit.
and that's so much massive damage. Massive volatile spiraling damage. And Ninja dies as well.
Wow.
This is a complete disaster for Rascal Jester.
Oh, and at the end of that fight, Hoglet lands just a massive cocoon onto Art Jester. He's trying to turn around some of that damage there. So they get the Herald. They get, I think that's 3 kills, and they're going to get this mid lane turret off of the immediate Herald summon as well. They've got themselves up to a 2k gold lead as well, so feeling very happy about themselves.
Yes, they are. And look at the end of that 2-0-2 on this Elite. It's 2-0-1 for this Misfortune. They are off to the races with about a 3,000 gold lead.
So we see Kokog already being chunked out here. Gadiadu still has the flanking position, and Ninja chooses to engage. Wants to try and cancel out the Misfortune. Doesn't land onto that. Art already blows both of his summoners in the face of the AXIZ diving comp here. Kokog gets his ult through, but is already very low HP. And then basically Unyan is just not welcoming them to the bounce house. Gets a 3-man Q1 there, which adds enough damage and CC to finish off the 3 members that go down from Rascal Jester.
And we saw that Elise had already picked up a fair amount of AP off some good early game as well. So that
He's got
volatile
double
spider
pen,
lane hit really hard.
Yeah, we've got a double pen onto this Elise now as well, and I'm pretty sure the Rascal Jester do not want to contest for this Mountain Drake. I don't think Mountain Drake's going up to the side of AXZ are particularly worrying Rascal Jester. They already have the one Drake themselves, the Cloud Drake, which gives them the ultimate cooldown reduction, and there aren't too many tanks to be worried about on the side of AXZ. They don't have a pure tank, although they will have some defensive boots from the likes of Unyan as well. Has the Mercury Treads available, but really there aren't too many resistances being built up so far.
Okay, so I'm going to need you to keep an eye on AXIZ vision control, because this is the point of the game where they start to slip up, or have done in weeks previously. And of course, with the compressed schedule of the LJL, there hasn't been all that much time to focus on that kind of element. It's been a 3-day turnaround from week 1 to week 2. It's been a 4-day turnaround from week 2 to week 3.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit nervous about AXIZ ability to not fall prey to poor vision setup around objectives.
And actually the first thing which I'm paying attention to is the fact that actually for now Gadiadu is a higher level than Ninja on the Silas in the mid lane matchup. But Ninja is finding a lot of time alone in the side lane, gets himself the tier 1 turret in the top lane, which brings the gold deficit back to about 2k, which is actually not insurmountable. It's just that for me, Gadiadu and Hoglet are so strong at this point in the game, as you were saying. The double pen items built up for Elise, so this is the strongest that she will be. At least, I mean, before she gets to the Zonyas and gets a little bit of extra team fight utility.
Yes.
But at least being quite strong at this point in the game.
Absolutely. And there is kind of a bit of a question really about what Elise does with this agency that she has currently. I will be interested to see where she decides to focus. We're seeing like a 1-3-1 kind of split up from both teams. LeBlanc's gone top side, Aatrox has gone bot. Ornn looking like he's going to be matching up versus his top lane opponent down that bot side, and Silas already having pushed out that top lane tier 1.
Yeah, so eventually Cog will become a decent teamfight tank. Is starting to build up a bit of magic resist now, so hopefully Gadiadu won't be able to chunk him out before the fight begins. I think that in the last Herald fight, and actually in the Dragon take in the Ocean before that as well, I think AXIZ have done a really good job of chunking out various members of Rascal Jester,
Yes,
which has effectively bought them those objectives. I'm
will
not
that
sure.
continue to be a thing they can do though? Because I'm assuming Cog is going to get tanky enough that incidental poke from a Spiderling won't stick as well.
Yeah, it depends, because so there is sustain off of Silas with his Kingslayer if he manages to find a target for that, and the Ashe builds up the Blade of the Ring King as well for that extra lifesteal. Does have the Hurricane now as well. We'll be able to wave clear very effectively. I think if you chunk out the Jarvan, who will be behind in levels for quite a while, I think that that will be the target to really look for. Everyone else has either got sustain or a bit of tank, unless you're trying to one-shot them, of course. Then go for whoever. Your life is yours, Gadiadu.
Yeah, so we're seeing Art is actually farming really well. Got the highest CS in the game, despite the fact that Misfortune has picked up those 2 kills in that last team fight.
About a 30 CS lead.
But means that what happens is that the Art has hit his second item a little earlier. Though, of course, that is a slightly cheaper item in the Rune and Hurricane compared to the Infinity Edge that's kind of just components at the minute for Hyde.
Yeah, although we talk about how expensive they are, but the Hurricane is so important for the Ashe. It does allow you to apply that ranger's focus, the Q little arrow flurry to everyone that 3 targets instead of just the 1 gives you a lot of damage in these team fights.
And I'm always excited to see Art once he gets to this point on Ashe in his who was it, game versus
It was against CGA.
CGA, that's right. Where he very, very nearly carried that game.
It was the Hawks where he
Sorry,
nearly
the
carried.
Hawks, that's the one. Where his Ashe flashing over various stunned tanks and firing out hurricane bolts into like 4 people at once was utterly awesome to watch. Didn't quite work out, but did end up looking pretty stylish in that loss.
Yeah, Kokok just backing off from this bot lane here, but being able to pick up this wave. Nonetheless, actually the gold lead is shrinking to about a 1.5k gold lead. I think just through the fact that there's more waves being picked up by Rascal Jester. We see that actually Hogler is for now a level behind Hachimetra as well, probably about half a level just in terms of the XP available. Whereas the mid lane is still a level advantage to Gadiadu over Ninja.
Yep, and we're kind of still in this lull of state, I guess. There's not a lot happening right now.
We're ping-pong waves right now until the next dragon comes up in 40 seconds.
Yeah, where I'm expecting a little bit more action to play out. And where are you sort of seeing this game go from here? What's the plan for the teams?
Okay, so we do have the 2 items on the Ashe, so she's pretty ready to team fight. I think they need to try and wrestle control of this dragon before AXZ get there, but I'm not sure that's likely to happen with the Misfortune teleporting in as well. There are 5 members of the map there. Ninja has a teleport available to him, but he's doesn't have too many wards for flanking, so he's just walking down to join his team as it is.
And we're looking at a 4-man stack for Rascal Jester in this mid lane, but Hyde has TP'd back in with said Infinity Edge, ready to team fight.
Yeah. You know what's actually really interesting is that between the Jarvan standard and the Hawkshot, the Rascal Jester have a lot of artificial vision they can use to check bushes.
Yeah, and that's a cocoon miss, but a decent amount of Spiderling poke, but doesn't actually stick because it's a Tahm Kench.
Yeah, and actually, so as the LeBlanc and the at least use their cooldowns there, a lot of their poke before this objective has been used, and Rascal Jester have found their way onto this objective around the pit now.
Yeah, double control ward up behind that mid lane wall, but we're seeing the Mountain Drake stacked and started by Rascal Jester.
Okay.
AXIZ are here to contest though. Hogler on vision, that's one word that hasn't been sniped up, and that's Cocoon going, and Hachimetra's here looking for that engagement. I think he's going to get this one. Yep, taken now. Yeah. So that is now a Mounted Drake, and it's 2 Drakes to 2. Ninja taking a lot of damage.
Stolen bullet time from Silas.
Indeed, it is stolen bullet time, but the first bullet time comes through, and Vivid
wow.
just get deleted. Look at Hachimetra having stopped watching the backline, but Ninja has having to flash away. AXIZ has killed out. She's gone down as well. Ninja taking so much damage, and it is suddenly a massive, massive team fight loss. One more time, Gadiadu, Hogler, Union continuing to chase, but it is just going to be a 3 for none. Mountain Drake taken for the cost of 3. Not sure that's worth it.
Huge bullet time from the side of Hyde. Had his 2 AD items built up in Infinity Edge and the Essence River. Art basically loses 90% of his HP before the fight even starts, and then Gadiadu goes in to clean up that as well. So actually, this could be a Baron take now from the side of AXZ.
They're TPing top, at least they're thinking about it, and actually look at Vivid, who had both summoners available, didn't get a chance to use them, I'm going to assume. Got deleted by that bullet time that came through.
Yeah.
More like never mind bullet time, it was a bullet maelstrom. So much damage. Ninja's here, gonna potentially think about contesting, but actually Vivid's here as well. Brought Hachimetra, but it's too slow. Nearly a cool idea.
Okay, nearly a cool idea. And yeah, so I think that while Rascal Jester did a really good job of making their way towards the Baron, the Dragon Pit, and trying to get this into a funneled fight and stuff like this. So as we see here, that they've managed to get themselves onto the objective first, something that we were talking about a little bit before this, but then effectively like they're being run down by the superior mobility of AXZ. The bullet time comes out onto 3 people. Art gets actually knocked up in the duration of the bullet time by the Brawl Ultimate, which buys a couple extra ticks to come through. Gadiadu finishes off that kill, and once the Ashe is down, a lot of their consistent damage is just gone, really. So I think it was really well played from AXZ and from Corporal and Hyde in particular to disrupt the backline during that fight.
Yes, and all said and done, it is now a 5,000 gold lead for AXZ. 42k to 37.5. We're looking at 402 on this Misfortune, who just picked up a Last Whisper versus the tanks we've been talking about on Rascal Jester, who've so far seemed not so much tanks as Swiss cheese by the time the Bullet Storm has come across them.
But what is important now is that actually we have Ornn items coming through. So each Ornn item that you upgrade probably gives you close to about 1,000 to 2,000 gold in terms of upgraded stats. We see 1 coming through from Ninja, and we see 2 coming through from Cog on his own champion of Ornn as well. So actually this gold lead, as much as it is very important, it's not...
But that's just not proving to be the case so far. It's 8 and 1, it's 8 turrets to 2. And that's looking like a really clean mid-game from AXZ, who are looking like they're going to close out this game at this point.
Yeah, it's like a 7.5k gold lead, and they have, you know, like I was saying, I don't think they necessarily get outscaled by the side of Rascal Jester. I think that Ashe does have some damage when it comes into team fights, but you're against Misfortune in that same class of champion as well. And as we see here as well, Gadiadu is finding it so much easier to put down damage than Ninja, who's really not had much impact this game.
No, and like maybe that's part of the reason we've not seen Silo so much at the minute. Doesn't have the strongest laning phase anymore, and by the time he's online, can sort of get blown up before he actually gets to use any of his ultimate.
Yeah, and I think the important thing this game is that AXIZ managed to find themselves ahead in the game, and they got to choose the lane assignments. They got to push up lanes. They got to go to the objectives first. And what that meant is that you can't really slide into this comfortable 1-3-1 with Silas and Ornn in side lanes. And that meant that Ninja's really never managed to find his angle into the fight. It's been Galliardo deciding which angles are being chosen as opposed to Ninja.
And I believe that is a mortal reminder picked up for Misfortune. So all of that healing that Silas really wants to put down, gonna mean jack all at this point. Gonna get shredded very quickly by the bullet time that will cover the team in that area effect. Grievous wounds.
Yeah, we do have the Infinity Edge upgraded to the Molten Edge actually as well onto Art, so he does have a lot of good stats.
Yes,
but
that's good.
That doesn't save you from this 2.5 item Galliardo as well. With the Oblivion Orb into the Void Staff, it's very efficient damage at this point in the game. We'll be blowing up this Ashe if the LeBlanc manages to find her way on top of that champion.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Hachimecha is level 1, he's level 11, just goes forward and has to get devoured out of that range. But Art here is trying desperately to hold off 2 waves of super minions. Has that Hurricane, is helping, but that...
bot lane as well. And I have to say, Hyde has also had a pretty good game on this Misfortune.
Yes, he has.
Sitting on 4-0-2, as we said, just shredded some of these team fights with the ultimate of Misfortune.
Yeah, so quality bullet times. Definitely doing well in her Mafia lineup. Ready to... ensure people are paying their protection money, so to speak. And we're doing a lot of damage from this Misfortune, who is, as we said, very, very strong. Picked up a BF sword on top of her 3 completed items. But Art has finally picked up a Hex Drinker. Maybe that will mean he can survive Galliardo, who has been trying to solo him out in every team fight thus far.
Okay. So what we see here is that AXIZ don't have their bot lane shoved up just yet, although that... as we see a Cog.
And Cog is now having to stopwatch, and I think he's just going to be in trouble. Does have Flash? Yep, Flash is out. But that's a lot of damage. That's a great Glacial Fissure. But there is a Devour there. But Unyan has found another good flank. Look at this damage. That's going to be GG. You've got to imagine. Fantastic flank. It's already a 1-0, a 2-0. Unyan keeps going forward, and that's Ninja trying to do enough work
damage
on that Glacial Fissure. Galliardo is slain Hachimecha, and it is a complete team fight. Ace for AXIZ.
And this game is going to end at 13-1 for AXIZ. Unyan with the party flash over the wall there. And AXIZ picking up their first win in their 5th game of the LJL 2020 Spring Split.
And it is still sadness for Rascal Jester, who performed so well despite their 1-3 record. This was not one of those games, looking a little bit lost and got very snowballed on in this game.
Very much so. So, we're going to bring it back to Mass Swan for our post-game segment. Mass Swan, what did you think?
Well, that was AXIZ playing every moment of the game in control. They felt very comfortable. The second they kind of got a little bit of control in that game, they didn't really try and let the Jesters really into it. And that was a very strong showing from all members of the team, honestly. Yeah,
I think that a particular props to Galliardo and to Hoglet for really wrangling control of that game with their poke combos from the Elise and the LeBlanc as well. We saw that Cog, as much as he was a tank, was actually chunked out sizably before each fight. Hachimecha also had a really poor game, I think, on the Jarvan. He never really managed to find any inroads, either in ganks or in team fights, which is what you pick that champion for. So I think Rascal Jester, it's a sting to their pride because they were obviously 1-3, but we thought more of them. We thought that they were up in these top tier teams. And, this could just be an off game. I hope it was an off game because I've loved what I've seen from them so far, but this was a bit of a blow.
Yeah. For me as well, I kind of was a bit nervous about AXIZ in that early game when we saw Hoglet kind of head straight to top side and then basically circle the river into enemy red buff, 3 times and not get anything done, just stole away Krug camps a couple times. And obviously you pick Elise to get things done early and it wasn't looking like much was occurring. But then they found that great pick in the mid lane. Then they found a couple really key objective fights, particularly around the Heralds, where Hyde just got the mother of all bullet times like multiple times in a row. And Unyan actually found some great flanks on Aatrox, managed to get in behind the team and like Dark and Blade knock people up multiple times. So really big props to the AXIZ top lane as well.
I mean, Corporal was doing the same thing at the very beginning of that game, right? With the Braum, he came out of the left side of mid, and it's like, why are you here? Oh, I guess I'm dead.
Yeah. No, Corporal I think has been I've been relatively impressed by him actually. You know, considering that they went 0-4. You know, he had some good performances on Thresh, and this is a good Braum performance as well.
Yeah.
I think so. There was that first team fight. You know, we were talking about the massive bullet time. That was set up by the Glacial Fissure as well, just knocking up Art before he could flash away from the bullet time, meaning that he took like an extra 200-300 damage, which meant that he was
That's
like
right.
a sitting duck.
But with that in mind, we are about to go on our break, but we will be right back after it. What we will be bringing you is AXIZ versus Crest Gaming Hacks, which is definitely going to be an interesting one to go into after AXIZ have now been able to pull up their bootstraps and kind of get a bit ready, you know. So
Yeah,
we will.
It's higher stakes now that they've actually taken down the Jesters and shown that they can win a game and win in like confident fashion too. That game was not like we were worried because it was AXIZ, but actually, you know, you look at that game back. If you turn off the nameplates, like they were in control of that game.
Absolutely,
The entire
yeah,
Oh
way.
yeah. Oh yeah, you could easily see a solo queue game where you just don't see names. You're like, oh yeah, no, this team just looks better.
I mean, we have seen 2 or 3 games from them where they have hit the mid game with at least a parity, if not with a slight advantage, and then throw it away. So it was really good to see some improvement from them, even with the short turnaround space they've had over the last sort of the weeks of play for LJL. In the fact that it wasn't really weeks of play, it was less than 1.
That is very true. This is.
We time travel here. We time travel.
We do time travel, not by much, but we are time travelers in a very small sense. But we will be right back to bring you that game. See you very soon.